Great.
Think we're ready.
All right. Welcome to the second presentation in the USITT Midwest Section's speaker series we're doing this year. We're giving people the opportunity to hear from a variety of people on subjects that we feel like maybe don't get quite enough airtime. And so today we're talking about how do you choose the college? And so I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Jana Henry Funderburk. I teach at Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Hi, my name is Sarah Oliver. I teach at the University of Michigan.
So Sarah has a design presentation. She's going to dip out and then she'll be back with us. As we do in theater, always multitasking, right?
Yeah.
So, Andrew, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Andrew Brackett. I'm the assistant professor of lighting and sound at the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point.
Thank you. And Jeff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Baldwin. I teach at Indiana University.
All right. So as you can see, we represent the Midwest section, which includes Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So we have someone from each state here. We're not really here tonight to, sell you our programs, but rather to kind of talk about what do you think about when you're choosing a college? Do you go where your parents went to school? Do you go where your teachers went to school? Do you consult top 10 lists? How do you make the choice of the school that is right for you? So the first thing that I'm going to put to our panelists is let's talk about the difference in degrees. A Bachelor of Arts versus a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. Does anybody want to weigh in on those to start?
I certainly can, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about. I actually have a Bachelor of Science in
Science.
Education. Yes.
Yeah.
So when I got my undergraduate degree, I got a theater teaching degree out of the state of Missouri. Very, very different in Missouri. But what's the big difference between a BA and a BFA? I think the best way to sum it up is that at BA, you take 30% of credits in your major, and the other 60 to 70% are outside of your field. Where a BFA, you're taking 65% of major focused classes. Is that a good way to sum it up?
Yeah, I think that's a great introduction. Who wants to talk about maybe the advantages and the disadvantages of each of those models?
I can go with that. I think each of them kind of depends on what you want to get out of your program. So if you want to study theater as a whole, sometimes the BA degree is more for that focus, where you get a little bit of acting, you get a little bit of history, literature, criticism, you get a bit of design and technology. You don't necessarily have to focus as heavily on a specific area of theater as most BFA programs do. Where a BFA program I'd see as more of a professional training type program, where you go in there with a focus of, I want to be a costume designer, I want to be a lighting designer, I want to be a musical theater performer. And all of your classes are really tailored towards preparing you for that career. So I see the BA degree as more of, I want to do theater and I like all aspects of theater. And the BFA is more of a professional training type degree.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of the things with the BFA degree that I found is it's really hard to do a double major with a BFA degree because you have so few classes outside of your major, that if you are looking to do a double major or a couple of minors, that sometimes a BA is a better option, and you can tailor your BA to be more towards your focus, but you don't necessarily have to be so rigidly constrained to a degree track as you do in a BFA.
I think that was a great summary. Great
Yeah, that
job.
was good.
Um, let's talk a bit about um, the time commitment that comes with pursuing theater in college. I find that many students who are doing theater in high school are also in band and choir and playing three sports and doing student government and on the newspaper. Um, let's talk a little bit about that time commitment of a theater major. Anybody want to field that? The homework level and production work?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could start. If we're talking about the level of commitment, let's just say it's a lot. But that's always a caveat though, because it depends on the program. It
Mhm.
depends on so many factors. Number one, are you going in as a BA or a BFA? That will determine on how much time commitment you're required. Some BFA programs will not let you have any design work or audition that first year, sometimes just the first semester. And as soon as you get into that requirement of a design or acting or anything like that, then your commitment level is going to go way up because now you've got all the rehearsals, you've got design conferences, all the paperwork, all these deadlines that are now going to start to eat up your time on top of all the classwork that you're going to do. And most of the time, if you have a design assignment, and I'm using that in a very general term because it could
Sure.
be as a TD, as a lighting designer, a scenic designer, costume designer, or even acting. Um, where was I going to go with that?
That level of commitment beyond.
Yeah, and depending on what you're doing, you there's all the design conferences and you're prepping for all of that stuff and sometimes some programs all of that stuff is on top of or outside of classroom work. So not only do you have to take your classes, whether it's BFA or BA, and whatever your class schedule is, but then you have a design assignment on top of that. And so every time that you have left over from all your homework, now you're dealing with all of the design requirements, all that. And it can get really tricky and dicey. And some classes, some of your undergraduate classes might have a crew component. So you can expect to serve on a crew for a length of time. I know, some programs it might be just a 2.5 week commitment, but that's every single night while the show runs because you are serving as a crew to help support the show as a whole.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. Because I think sometimes we think about things very compartmentalized
Mhm.
and like, oh, I'm only in class for 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's all of the other the homework and the reading and all of those kind of things that can really take a significant amount of time. Just
Right.
some of the things that I thought about um a prospective student asking those questions about if if you're at a smaller school. I teach at a D3 school, so playing a sport. Some people want to continue to play a sport into college. What does that look like? You know,
Oh, yeah.
um, if you're at a D1 school, probably not an issue, but um, um, Greek life. If you want to be active in a fraternity or a sorority, what do those commitments look like, and how do those jive with, as Jeff said, like you have to be here every night for 2 weeks. How does Greek life allow those absences where you are? That kind of thing. Um, Work. Do you need to have a job? If so, are there jobs available on campus, in the department, with the local union? Can you get on a call list? Those kind of things. If you can get some of those things that you know you need to give time to or you want to give time to, like you can make the choice to have these things in your life. Um, where do those fit into the puzzle? Just going back to our analogy of the pieces of the puzzle.
Ooh, I
Um,
like it.
yeah, it's not a either or, you know. You need to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think also, gosh, I just lost my train of thought, but I was thinking that it's all about kind of what you want to devote your time to. And I think one thing that you'll find is that. Theater, especially when we go into it, we want to be there 24/7. which is really, really great. And sometimes you can get a job in one of the shops and things like that as an undergrad. But you also have to take time for yourself. And what does that program require? Are you working through breaks? How many strikes are there? Yeah, I mean, there's always all these like little nuances. And so when you start asking those questions, like how many shows do they do a year? What's the time level commitment? I think it kind of really helps to fill in the gap of all these. Sometimes it might lead to more questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think talking about how many sorry, Andrew, how many shows a year is great because it feels amazing to say we did 75 shows a year. That seems like so many opportunities. It's
Yeah.
75 load-ins and 75 strikes and 75 hangs. Like, ooh, that suddenly feels like a lot.
Right.
Yeah. Good
well, I
point.
think it's also important to realize that it is not a perpetual decision, that this is a time commitment that can shift over the course of your time at the university, where you can work up to things. So if you're on a run crew and it's a 2 week assignment that or a 3 week assignment that semester, you can see how that level of commitment fits with your life. And then the next year you could be on a shop assignment, which rather than doing a 2 week every night is, 10 hours a week in the shops, which is more spread out, or a design assignment where you're committed to being the painter of your show that's in the shop. So for those 4 weeks of build, you're committed every afternoon to being in the shop. And just depending on what you choose as your production work for each semester and each production can really vary your amount of time commitment that's required so that you can plan it around other things. So knowing that your sister's getting married next semester, you pick to be run crew on a show that doesn't work over that weekend so that you know that you can fulfill your requirements to the program, but still have that time that you need to do personal and family things.
Yeah, I think um that's a great point. I want to talk a little bit about campus size. Ooh, that amorphous campus size. Um, uh, Jeff and Sarah are both at large universities that have large campuses. Um, what's your enrollment? Any idea?
Oh, I have no clue. I
At,
really
at,
I could
at the
Google it real quick.
university, at the whole
Yes.
university, or
I
I
know
think
that one, Jeff.
Tyler, do you know that?
Yes, Indiana University has 42,000 enrolled.
That's a lot.
yeah, we're
Yeah, that's
somewhere
just the
between
Bloomington
50.
campus.
I think we're somewhere between 50 and 60,000.
Oh my.
Because the
That's a
joke
lot.
is that when school lets out, that 50,000 students leave Ann Arbor. So, I mean, so I'm not far off, right?
Right. It's probably in that ballpark, I
Yeah.
would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, do you know how many students you have?
I think we're right in that 8 to 10 range.
Okay. And I teach at a university that has less than 2,000. Um, so yeah. So the size of a university, right, can really be part of making that choice. Um, what are the advantages of a large university?
I'm going to take that because I've been off at my design presentation. Um,
Yeah.
well, I think that's a two-part question though, because I've taught at two different universities where, yes, we are at a huge university, but like here we are on a North Campus. So yes, we're at a large university, but we're on a part of the campus that's much smaller. And that's been true for two different universities. So we're not necessarily, it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? So you don't feel that like, oh my goodness, I'm at 50,000 people. We have all of the luxuries of that, but yet your day-to-day interaction is much smaller. So that's kind of the third, I would say, sits between what
Oh,
you're talking about,
no, I agree. There are
the
yeah.
hybrid,
Yep.
but the advantages are you have the power of what that brings to you. You could do all of those things I think you were talking about earlier, like if you want to do marching band, if you want to participate in D1 sports, if if all of those things are things that you want to bring to your theater career, you have access to them. Sometimes it's a lot. You have to make choices.
Mhm.
But right. I went to college at a fine art school that was much more like what Jan was talking about. So it was very small. So I've seen both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
my undergrad was at a very large institution. I was at the University of Minnesota, but all of the arts was on the West Bank campus. So we were again secluded as part from not secluded, but we had our bubble that we lived in on the West Bank, whereas like all of the um, sciences and things like that lived on the East Bank campus. So we had our own, smaller community within the bigger university. So much so that there was separate dorms on the West Bank, so they had their own living community on the West Bank. Being a double major with architecture, I ran back and forth across the bridge to which side of the river I was on all the time. But so I got the best of both worlds in that.
yeah. Did you have any university studies type classes in sciences or anything like that were
Yeah,
over there?
so I had a BA degree, so I was all over campus for
Okay.
general education classes.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I agree with Sarah that there is a middle because I teach at a very small university. Like I said, 2,000 students, but we have a large theater program. So we've had up to like 300 majors. Um, so we have a full staff and we have a great new beautiful building. Like, we have things that are an advantage that you would see in like at a bigger university. Like I went to a school this size and the theater department had one professor for undergrad. Um, so yes, I agree. I think there are middle grounds. But I think it's important to like feel that out as you visit campuses. Um, when I went to a small undergrad because I visited my sister at a large state school and I was like, oh, nope, I don't feel at home here. And some of those things I feel like we can talk about um hours in curriculum and things like that. But to me, that's one of those like almost you just feel it type things that really visiting a school um kind of helps you figure that out.
Yeah.
So
Well, and if I may too, I think you kind of hit on something too, is that, I mean, I think you have to do what's right for you, whether or not you do a big university or a
mhm.
middle ground or a small university. There's definitely pros and cons to everything. Just because it's a big university doesn't mean that a theater department is um, supported in a way that makes learning conducive. And the same thing could be said at a small university. Some smaller universities have really robust programs that are really supported and all, and put their students first and offer a lot of really great opportunities. Because just because you're at a big university doesn't mean that you're going to get all of the fun stuff. And I think what you just said was really important is that it's kind of like boots on the ground. Sometimes you have to go and talk and look and explore the space, if you will. And you're going to get a sense of like, man, this is really home. This is really great. And now I know what questions to ask because I'm feeling a connection. I love the spaces. I love the professors. It seems very supportive and a really great and learning environment. And you can get that at any type of university, but I think you kind of really have to go to find out sometimes to whether or not you feel that connection.
Yeah, I think I think you made a nice wrap up of that there. Um well, and you spoke about the opportunities. Um One of the things to ask about um, is this an undergraduate only program or is there also a graduate program? Um, Neither one of those do I think are particularly good or bad in their own right. Um, there are a couple of different models that you will see. There are universities that only have undergraduate courses. That means, freshman through senior years. And then there are ones that have graduate degrees, people who are pursuing master's degrees, PhDs, and the MFA, which is the terminal degree in design and production. Um, why is this an important thing to ask about? Does anybody want to take that one on? When you're 18 and looking for a college, why do
I
you want
think
to
re
know?
I think really it serves to um, kind of define what your role in the university is going to be.
Yeah.
And even within programs, like what are those opportunities for undergraduate students? So do undergraduates get main stage design opportunities? Or are they assistant design opportunities? Or are they um, more studio designed, so second stage type design opportunities? Um, what is your access level to the actual professor of record? So a lot of times the graduate students will be the one teaching some of these undergraduate classes. So do you actually get to work with the professor who is, the name of that program, or do you work with their teaching assistant mostly? Um, is it undergraduate only program so that by the time you're sophomore, juniors, you're doing all the main stage shows? That may give you more of a resume, but less exposure to the industry. So it's really what are those things that you're looking for in the program that to help determine what it is that you want to get out of it.
Yeah, I think you hit on the mentorship piece. Like I think how what kind of relationship you want to form with your professor and what kind of interaction you want to have with them and what kind of interaction you might have with the technical shops too. Um, in the sense that sometimes if there is an MFA program, you might be doing more work in the shops to support the graduate level work, or you might be working with those TAs that are graduate students, GSIs, whatever those are, and your interface with the professor of the program may be reduced just because their level of work is more focused towards the graduate students. That's not every program, but that can be some programs. So I think it when you have a program that has both, I think it really you should do the homework. Like that's a time to really talk to the students that are there of both of them and make sure you're talking to the student that's the kind of student you're going to be and find out what their life is about and their hours and who they spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead,
absolutely.
Jeff.
Well, it kind of just got me thinking too. Um, we know that an undergrad and a graduate program sometimes can go coexist really well. But it is important though, not only being able to have access to the mentorship or the professor of record, but something that just dawned on me too is that, some programs that do have graduate programs, you may not be able to take some of those really fun classes because they're high level graduate only courses. That gets into a whole curriculum discussion, but I think it's one that you look into and you find out and say, oh man, this looks really, really great. Oh, that's only a graduate level class. Um, that would be a graduate program, but not to say that in some undergraduate programs that you have a wide variety of curriculum offered to you. I don't know, maybe I opened up a can of worms on that one.
No, I don't think so. I think it's an important thing to consider, right? Like there can be a giant list of classes, but if you can't take them, does it matter? You know?
Yeah.
There may be beautiful photos in the brochure,
Mhm.
but if you don't get to participate in that main stage experience, um, do you care that there are beautiful photos? Um, it, but conversely, those opportunities may be open to you. Don't assume just because there is a graduate program that there is nothing for the undergraduate to do,
And
you
where
know?
they're being placed. Like that's the other thing is like what's the expectation when you graduate? And sometimes I find the brochures can be full of graduate work and like doing the work to find out like where are my undergrad if it's a dual program, where are my undergraduates going, right? And what are they doing and what's the expectation for them,
Right.
for that student, which can be amazing, but just be clear about, what what's my future career going to look like, right?
Sarah, that's an excellent point. Talking about alumni outcomes, where do alumni go and what do they do? That's a really valuable question to ask. Um, and again, I think it can be a double-sided question, right? Um, We say, where do your alumni go? And if someone says, well, every single one of our alumni go and work for Disney, that's awesome. They all have jobs. Great. If you don't want to work for Disney, that's not the place for you, right? So asking that question about where do alumni go and what are they doing, um, think really hard about the answer that you get, I think is what I would say. Um, I don't know.
No, no, I think you're onto something too. Now I'm gonna go one more step further, just because they say that all of their alumni go to work for Disney. What are they doing at Disney?
Sweeping sidewalks, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Yeah,
right?
what's the job placement? Where are they at? And if they go, oh no, we got everybody, at this particular company. What is their jobs currently? Well, you fit 40% of them start out as apprentices, or I mean, I don't even know, some
Right.
sort of
Yes.
internship that doesn't even amount to anything. I think that would be very telling. So asking those questions, not
Mhm.
just the, oh, cool, they're working for Tate, or oh, cool, they're working for here. What's their
Right.
job and how long have they been there?
Right. I think that's an excellent follow-up to that. Um, sorry, Sarah, you said alumni placements, and that really did make me think about that. And particularly in
Well,
this industry. Oh, sorry, I was just going to talk about
yeah.
freelance. Yeah,
I
which
was
is
just
hard.
going to say parents ask that a lot, and I think the expectation is that they want their children, rightly so, to like get in the theater industry. But I think there's so much more in the entertainment field and so many more jobs that we're suited for. And I especially if you're looking at a school that is not just a conservatory style program, I think it's really great to see all the places that your degree could take you. So if you're 18 and you graduate at 22, maybe you're not going to end up in the theater, but where else could this kind of education take you? That's a great valuable question, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So many of the skills that we are learning in these degrees, right, are leadership and flexibility and project management. And those can take you a lot of places that are not a theater building or even in entertainment. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think also the nature of freelance work and gig work, as we call it, um, people say, what companies are they working for? Well, they're self-employed, so many of them. Um, and that's a really hard thing to wrap your hands or brain or whatever around, I guess, is that like I'm gonna go to school for all these years and then not work for a company.
Well, I think then it's important to know like what introductions and opportunities they've been exposed to in that area. So if you're in the Chicagoland area, do they have opportunities at Steppenwolf, Goodman, Chicago Shakes, and every storefront theater that is in Chicago because there's a million of them? Or, are they expected to do all of their work on campus so those type of outside engagements aren't encouraged? Do they work with IATSE calls? Do they have union calls outside of campus that they're encouraged to go to so they can build those connections within the industry? Or are they expected to, you know, serve on campus and support only the campus productions? What are those relationships that exist with your program?
Mhm.
Yeah,
which leads me into my question I always ask too is what are your classes in professional development? Because we are gig workers, we're self-employed, and these days it takes so much more than just, making a beautiful portfolio. So I really am always interested in what programs, what classes are going to help the students be successful when they walk out the door and all the things that we know take all the effort to, get a job, right? Where there's
right.
not a 9 to 5 job.
Just yes. To so in my I'm just to share this story in my seminar class, we had a mocktail party. We invited some people that the students didn't know, and they're all supporters of the arts in our community, right? But our students didn't know them. And these electricians had to like drink in one hand, it was juice, but and walk up and introduce themselves to a stranger and find a connection and make conversation with somebody they had nothing in common with and did, that is a skill that is undervalued, I think. Right. If you want to work, you have to get to know people and you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And particularly people who choose to work backstage are often people who do not want to be in the limelight and do not want to be seen. That's why we wear black, right? Um, so you're absolutely right. Like you need to know about unions and you need to know about taxes and you need to know about all of those things that are part of being independently employed. It's a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good question pop in. Would this be
All
a good time
right.
to throw it out there?
Yeah.
All right. So Christy says that Sarah brings up an excellent point. There are hundreds of jobs where tech theater skills are foundational. All the facets of live entertainment, TV, film, AV, and more are available, and most are more reliable as sources of income than theater, which tends to be gig work. Anybody want to comment on that one?
True. Does anybody want to follow up on that?
I mean, it can be true. Yes, I mean, we do have students that go straight into the theater industry, but we do have students that go into live entertainment. We do have students that go into everything that was just mentioned. And so I think that comes up to the question of what are you looking for in a training, and do you want to drill down to that kind of conservatory style, or do you want to give yourself a wider buffet because you're not, you know, you want more kind of cushion as you leave.
Well,
It's hard to say.
and I think knowing that those careers are out there can give you that stepping stone into
Hmm.
your goal career. So,
Yep.
yes, maybe I want to be a lighting designer in Chicago. Well, maybe I'm working as an AV tech in McCormick Place while I'm trying to get design gigs in the city. So I have a steady income that can support my arts and is still in the career I've trained for while still like going for that ideal job that I've always wanted. So they're the side jobs that we can do so that, we don't necessarily have to be waiting tables while waiting for the perfect gig to come along.
Yeah, I've got an example. I'm trying to. I have known of students, not in my current job here at Indiana University, but of other universities that I've worked at, where they went in as a scenic design major, BFA. And then where did they land up? They landed up in New York. And what did they ended up doing? Because we talk about these side gigs, right? Now they are a welder at the public.
Mm-hmm.
How did they make that transition? Because it started out as gig work, as a full-time job working at a theater in order to do side work in something that they actually got a major in. And I think that kind of goes into this whole idea of like choosing the right school where you're exposed to all these opportunities, because this was a scenic designer who worked in the shop, who got a particular skill set by working in a shop that then helped them transfer those skills so they could do a side gig of things that they love. And I think it's just about everything that you're exposed to while you're at that school, at that university that you choose from. But the only way you're going to know that is if you ask the right questions. Do you
Mm-hmm.
allow us to work in the shop, whether it's the costume shop, whether it's the lighting shop, whether it's the scenic studio? Do they offer work study programs so you can actually work in the shop and actually get paid for it? Or, all these wonderful questions that then sometimes when you step out, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got a BFA in lighting design. I do not know what to do. Well, you might start out as an electrician doing that as a full-time job for a theater, so then you can do the fun stuff on the side and start to work your way up. I realized I was talking a lot with my hands there. That just seemed really weird.
We do what we do, right? Um, and the thing that I would say also with that is, I think you don't have to give up on the dream,
Oh,
you know? And maybe you have a dream and maybe you don't, right? how you get there eventually may look different than what you thought it was going to be. It is generally not, I received my BFA and then my next step was Broadway. There's usually some steps in the middle there, right? A number of them. So, um, if that's our goal, great, our dream, that's great. And it's a great dream to have. But all of the other things that come in between, um, those are also wins and those are also successes and those are also moments to learn. And sometimes the path is not straight and sometimes we wind up somewhere that we never thought we would be. Um, and we turn out better for it, you know? So, I think that is maybe one of the hardest things to think about at the age of 17 or 18. And I'm old, so I can say these things. Um, is uh, it's not a straight life is not a straight path and it's not an A to B sort of journey. And so wherever you wind up, right? That's the other thing I would say. Wherever you wind up, you don't have to stay there. You go and you don't like it, you can transfer. Um, I'm probably not supposed to say things like that, but you know, I've had a student who was like, I'm not happy here. I'm leaving. I'm moving to LA and I'm going to work in the makeup industry. And I said, good, go, if that's where you want to be. Um, she's now a drag queen that is doing really, really well for herself. Um, you know, that's where that journey needed to go. And so there's also that part.
Well, transfers is such an interesting subject. I know I was a little MIA earlier, but some universities are large enough that allow transfers. So,
Mhm.
like, we're big enough that if you want to transfer, like, we have a ton of students that transfer in. And so that may be a question you want to ask, right?
Yes.
Because maybe you don't know what you want to do, or we have a lot of dual majors with engineering for some reason, it's the thing. So, can I transfer from the art school to the theater school, or can I transfer? So it may be a question to ask, especially if you're not quite sure, right? If you didn't get enough hands-on, or you didn't get to design as much when you were in high school, and you're just unsure if you then choose a university that's large enough, you're getting kind of a solid, education, and maybe you could transfer. So that might be for you, right?
Yeah. I think asking if a program is transfer friendly is, um, I mean, that's that first question, if that's, um, both in and out, I would say.
Mhm.
Um,
Because I've
if
been
you're,
at programs that was a no, right? You were going to take, it just wasn't possible, right?
yeah, if you're at a school where, depending on how many credits your courses are,
Mhm.
um, 3 or 4 is typical credits, right? If you're at a school that everything is a 1 credit class, those are probably not going to transfer as 3 credit classes if you try to go somewhere else. Um, uh, and if you try to go you're going to have to do some negotiating and probably have syllabi and, all of those kind of things. It can be doable. Um, one of the other things I would say is the program accredited or is the university accredited? You saying art school is what actually made me think of it. Um, we had a student come who wanted to transfer in from an art school, and we started looking at stuff, and the school was not an accredited university by a higher learning, accreditation. And so, it was an independent for-profit school. And in that case, those credits don't transfer anywhere, you know. Um, so when you're shopping on that front end, make sure the university is or college is, an accredited university or college. The other thing I would say is then if you think maybe you're going to want to go to graduate school, you want to make sure that, you have an actual degree. So
Yeah,
not
and
not a certificate.
yeah, I'm going to hit on that real quickly too. Um, I've had a student apply to the graduate program, and their undergrad did not give out A, B's, or C's or D's. it was pass or fail. And I think that's a good question to ask on what type of, is it a certificate? Is it accredited? And what does my transcript say? Because just because they applied to the graduate program, we had to kind of do some weird looking, and trying to, can you accept an undergraduate degree that's just pass or fail? It was very, and they were, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? They were like, it doesn't matter, but it was very strange because I had never seen it before.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another question.
Oh,
Can we talk a little bit about opportunities for undergrads at KC, ACTF, and USITT? Very appropriate question since we're, here on a USITT Midwest Section chat. Yeah, so USITT stands for United States Institute of Theater Technology. They have both a national organization and regional groups. This is the regional group for the Midwest. But there are opportunities for undergraduate students to be involved in these professional organizations. And you can start a student chapter at an undergraduate university if the university doesn't already have one. So students can plan their own programming. They can, raise funds and go to the national conference, which is in a different city every year. This coming year, we will be in Columbus, Ohio. The following year, we'll be in Long Beach.
correct.
So spring break in California, right? But these provides opportunities for students to network with industry leaders, manufacturers, take classes, or in both sort of professional development, but also little labs and things like, hey, nobody where I am teaches soldering. Hey, we have a soldering lab. Nobody teaches rigging. Hey, there are rigging labs. I want to learn how to ventilate. Cool. We have a wig lab. There are places there you can do hands-on learning. And also, what I love about USITT is here are these people who are literally the people who wrote the book.
Literally.
I just walked up and introduced myself to Richard Pilrow one day. So he was standing in a lobby by himself and he just got an award. And I just walked up and said, congratulations on your award. We have a mutual friend, and struck up a conversation. You get to talk to these people in a way that same with Jane Greenwood. We had a great conversation about teaching. You get to
And
talk
they all have name tags on, so you know who they are.
That's right. That's really helpful too. So
and they're there because they want those interactions. Like,
Yeah.
that is why they go to these things,
Absolutely.
is to meet everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. KCACTF, Kennedy Center for the Arts.
Center American College Theater Festival.
American College Theater Festival. Thank you. I was like, I'm gonna mess it up. So program all across the country. They adjudicate program performances. Thank you. And design work. And so you can have your work reviewed. Again, their work can be taken to festival because F, to the festival to be presented. People, you can win awards. Hey. Right.
I believe KCSTF has 11 regionals. I might be wrong on the number. And so each of the regions has a festival. And so the respondents that come to your shows then nominate you for awards at your regional festival, along with the opportunity to bring your productions to the regional festival. And then the presentations that happen at the regional festival then can get you to go to the national festival, which I believe is still in DC every year.
Yeah. So again, these are great opportunities to showcase your work. I would say USITT also has some other programs like the Stage Management Mentorship Program for young stage managers, the Gateway Program, um, which is trying to work to bring diversity to our industry that we need. And so, again, those working can be paired with a mentor and get mentorship in their career path. Yeah, there's a lot of really great opportunities in both of those organizations. That was a really great thing to bring up. So you might want to see if the school is involved in those programs.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just add one more thing too, is like, as far as like USITT,
Hmm.
scholarships, even the Midwest, there's, you know, always opportunities to submit work and do applications for scholarship and money. Everybody loves money.
Everybody loves money. That's
And
right.
and then on the final, once you've kind of gone through your college career, both KCACTF and USITT have portfolio reviews, like emerging creatives, and then KCACTF, once you produce work, and then you can have your work up and it's adjudicated. And then the lovely thing is that people in the industry will give you feedback on your work. So, especially if you're at a program that's on the smaller side and you're really getting feedback from one professor or two professors, and that, you're looking for another voice in the room, it's a great way to submit your work and get feedback from a lot of people and really lovely people in the industry that are just there to talk to you about your work. So I encourage you to apply to those if you're on this and you're kind of at the end of your college career and you're thinking about grad school or something like that. Both of those have great portfolio engagements. So they're on their websites. You can find it.
Yeah, I'm going to add one more thing because of what you just said. Um, Everybody at USATT, it's networking, 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 and everybody is friendly. They want to help watch you succeed. And, the next thing you know, you're having someone come over that is adjudicating your work, and you can ask them and have those conversations about what's the next step. How do I get from A to B? And boy, they are just going to talk your ear off and try to help you. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a perception out there and maybe in movies um of theater as a cutthroat industry, right? That the arts are about, there's one role and I'm gonna get it sort of thing. And I just don't find that to really be true, at least on our side in the design and production areas. Um, I think everyone has been there and been that young person unsure of who to talk to, who to sit by, and so yeah, really people are like, hey, come over here and sit with us, or oh, where are you from? Oh, is this your first time?
Oh
Make
yeah,
sure you check this. So
yeah,
there's even, yeah, USIT, there's a first timers reception.
yeah.
So we want to make sure, right, that we are bringing up the generation or two that are going to be behind us, that are going to keep this thing rolling for a long time to come. And we need people who have good training and are fun to work with. That's
And you can come to USITT as a high school student. So if you're thinking about college, you can come to the expo. Colleges are on the floor, so you can interview colleges. You can do some of this prep work. If you're thinking about a school, there's a ton of schools which will have booths on the floor. You can talk to the professors like literally one-on-one, and get some great information. So, you know, it's a good thing.
I would say reach out, reach out, reach out. And I know that's sometimes feels really hard to send an email to a stranger. But now we're not strangers because we've been here on this call. So right. And you can say, hey, I don't think your program is it for me, but here's what I'm looking for. And I think most of us would be happy to help. Um, because we ultimately want you to succeed.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to add one thing to that. When I'm recruiting, and I would imagine anybody else on the panel when we're recruiting, and I'm speaking for myself, But if I hear the likes and interest of a particular um, perspective, I'm going to talk to them back and forth. And then I realize, oh, you know what? My program's not for you. But I do know a program that is going to fit perfectly for what your wants and needs are. And I'm going to recommend you, hey, you go talk to this person and this person because it sounds like that is really what your area is. And it's about sharing. Because I don't want to see you come to my program and fail if your heart's not in it or if there's something that I can't offer you. But I know a whole host of other programs that could be something beneficial to you.
I think that's,
Jana, we had the money question in the
yes, I
Q&A.
see that.
And Jeff, I just want to second that. I can't tell you how often I've been in an interview and I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at a thespian festival, and somebody I went to college with walked somebody over from their table to my table. I'm like, uh, I'm not the place for them. Here, come talk to my friend. So yeah, that's not uncommon.
And
So
it happened to me at Erda's when I was looking at grad programs. It's like 3 people told me I needed to go talk to Brandon. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go talk to Brandon.
but I will do that. Right. Yeah, listen when the advice is given.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So our question in the chat is, do we have tips for students who need help with funding? Good question.
I think we need a follow-up question though. Well, what type of funding? Funding to go to school or funding for applications? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start with funding for just going to school. There's always scholarships. And I think the first thing that you need to do is you need to talk to the program. Let's say there's 4 schools that you're going to talk to and you like all 4 of them and you find out that it's a BFA or BA program, whatever that you're interested in. You need to ask how many scholarships they give out, how many people do they accept, because if they say, well, we accept 350 people and we only give out 5 scholarships, that might be pretty intense. However, if they accept 20 to 30 and they give out 50% or 60%, maybe they're low. I would ask a range. Is it $1,000? Is it $500 for tuition? I would look into work study. That is through financial aid. Typically, most you can work in one of the studios, either scenic costume, as an employee, and they'll pay you through work study. What else am I missing?
I think if you've like picked your school, like this is the place for
It
me.
is the place.
This is the place I'm going here. Um, start with money the university offers. And sometimes we think about the major scholarships, right? Because those are but if you have good grades, if you have a high ACT, SAT score, if the school's requiring scores, um, that's going to get you more money. So think about your grades as you are. Those high school grades actually do matter for something. Sorry, but there may be an honors program that you qualify for that comes with scholarship money. There may be, we have scholarships that are up to full tuition for those kind of things. There may be scholarships for affinity groups that you are involved in. So look toward those kind of things. Is there a scholarship for, Latinx students? If there is, right, and you are, that's the important part, then you should apply for that. Don't psych yourself out of applying for those things. But money has been put there and earmarked to serve students. That's what scholarships are for. So really go to that page and look at all of those opportunities that are there. So I would start there. Like, try to get your price as low as you can.
And I
And
would say
then
that, like, especially don't be afraid to write those letters and apply, because many, many scholarships go ungiven simply because no one took the time to apply for it. So
Yep.
even if they're the $1,500 scholarships, write the letter, do the application, because those $1,500 can add up to, that's a textbook, that's a piece of software, that's a week of groceries of scholarship money that they all add up. So don't be afraid to apply for the little ones because oftentimes they get overlooked and go unfilled.
I would
I'm
say,
going to take, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, just along that line, talk to your parents. What organizations are they involved in? What organizations are your grandparents involved in? There are lots of community organizations that have scholarships. Sarah, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, take one step back, maybe to, I think sometimes we forget about in-state and out-of-state, and
Oh,
sometimes we don't look at the program that's in our state because we're like, oh, that isn't a good school, but maybe the theater program at that school is really amazing, and the school itself might not have the prestige you think it is, but making the choice to go to an in-state school, if money is truly tight, could be a huge financial choice for you. That's really saved you a lot of money versus that fancy out of state school where you just don't qualify for a lot of things. So I think sometimes we're like, oh no, that's not a good school, but the theater program could be a really great theater program. So I think sometimes we're just like, I'm not going in state because I live here. But if finance is really tough, that may be a choice that's really affordable for you.
And also, I would look at reciprocity agreements.
Mhm.
Like Wisconsin, Minnesota have reciprocity agreements so that you basically pay in-state tuition. It's not quite that simple, but essentially, and a lot of other states have, uh,
Kansas and Missouri and Kansas City did that.
yeah, so a
mhm.
lot of states have those agreements, or they have, if you have a high enough ACT score or GPA, they have a scholarship that gets you to in-state tuition, on top of other financial aid that's available. So look at those opportunities as well.
And I'm going to speak as the person who teaches at a private university, which is we have no in-state or out-of-state tuition. Tuition is tuition. You don't pay by the credit hour. Tuition is tuition. So you pay the same amount if you take 12 credits and you are from Chicago as you pay if you take 18 credits and you're from Louisiana. So there are a lot of different models, and those are really good. Thank you, Sarah, because that's actually a really important question to ask. The other thing I would say is don't assume because the school is private university that it's out of your reach financially. So our cost is we're in Illinois and we are between U of I's in-state cost and out-of-state cost. So we're in the middle there. Um, so ask those questions. That was a good one.
And a lot
What
of the
else?
big privates do have large endowments that make tuition nearly free, if
Yeah,
you
there
can
are
get in.
I think there are some that it is free right now, which
Yeah,
is I would
but
say
yeah,
those are highly competitive.
right. But look at the package as a whole. So not only the scholarships, not only the upfront costs, but look at, the net result of that, of, how much scholarship money is available versus what that cost is, so that you can kind of see what your actual out-of-pocket cost is going to be. Because, some state schools may have less in scholarship money available than some private schools. So even though the private school cost is more, the scholarships may bring that down to less than what in-state would be for going to the state school. And the other way can work out as well.
One
It's
thing that I keep hearing to sum this all up is you have to ask questions and you got to do your research. You're going to create a little Excel file and you're going to go, I want to look at this college that's out of state. It's all glitz and glammy and it sounds really cool, but then you do your research and you find out that the theater department is not all that great. And then you start looking interior, you find those schools that you do like, and then you start asking all those questions,
Mhm.
um, in state, out of state, how much money does the university give? How much does the department give? And then really narrowing it down to what you can and can't afford. Because it's not fun to leave undergrad lots of money in debt, knowing,
Yeah.
it just, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I think, Jeff, that's really important. I think that debt you carry informs your life choices,
It does.
right? And so, yeah, I'll
It
just say,
doesn't mean that your dream cannot happen, but
right.
it just means that you need to be smart about it and just, yeah. And long as you've done your research and long as you know what you're getting into and you start applying for everything under the sun, even if you think you're questioning about, I don't really know, just do it because maybe there's an off chance that you might get that. And
And
then,
it's
what's that?
definitely a no if you don't apply.
Yeah, it's definitely no if you don't apply. Yeah. And then you're going to leave school and you're going to feel good about what your income to debt ratio is. And then you're going to get to be able to take those side gigs and work, hopefully at a theater, right? And do something that you love without, you know, being broke.
Yeah. Any more questions? Are we good? Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
questions.
Yes, thank you. Those were excellent questions. Um, Thank you for those of you who joined us live tonight. And going forward, anyone who has questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you very much to our panelists tonight, who have only done this out of the goodness of their own hearts, because they are, excited about education.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.